What's up, guys? Mustang Doctor. And I'm just here tonight to talk a little bit about headers and why you need a tune for those. There's a lot of guys that will post just installed long tube headers. Do I need a tune? Am I okay to drive home? I'm going to talk to you guys about why you do need a tune and why you would want a tune. There's a lot of guys that you'll see respond on some of the forums and the posts and say, don't need a tune, don't need a tune. The adaptives will pick it up, which is true to a degree, but I'm going to show you guys why you need one and why you want one. And we're going to jump right into the tune and take a look at that. Okay, guys, now that we're in the tune, the first thing I want to start with is the adaptives comments. Don't worry about getting a tune for headers, not necessary. The adaptive learning will clean it up. And this is what a lot of those guys are talking about when they make comments like that. It's really the main table that we want to hit when it's time for tuning is the O2 transport delay. And basically what that's going to do, or what that does, is it's the amount of time. So if you think about it like this, and we just explained the general quick concept of fuel trims and O2 sensors. Basically, your air is coming in the intake, it's going into the engine's sensing that airflow through a mass airflow sensor or a MAP sensor. It's then telling the it's going through the engine, it's getting an injection of fuel, it's coming through the exhaust, hitting that first O2 sensor. That O2 sensor is sending back a signal to the PCM saying we're rich, we're lean, or we're right on the money. That signal going back to the computer that's then turning around and sending the appropriate amount of injector pulse width is really what we want to adjust in this portion of the tuning on headers. So this is a stock table that you're looking at right now, and it's really called the O2 transport delay table. So this is bone stock with either stock headers, if you will, or stock exhaust manifolds. And basically what's needed is really dialing in this table. A lot of times we'll just go in and multiply it by 1.5, but then we'll do some data logging and dial it in a little bit closer. So essentially what happens here, though, and the reason why you need to advance the O2 transport delay is and this is only on long tube header setups, because that O2 sensor that's in the header is now, since it's a long tube header, that O2 sensor is back a little further than where it was, and we need to tell the ECU or the computer, hey, wait a minute, you're not going to get an answer from these O2 sensors for a little bit longer than you normally would. So we're just going to basically advance this O2 transport delay table out a little bit, and that's what a lot of guys are saying. Don't worry about tune on headers, because the adaptives are gonna clean it up. And basically what they're talking about are the long-term fuel trims or the adaptive learning. So adaptive learning will eventually address that. The problem with allowing adaptive learning, or I should say leaning on adaptive learning to take care of that, is it's your table is always going to be the same. And so your adaptive learning is making corrections and adjustments for that. You really don't want to lean on your adaptives all the way to the edge. You want to dial in the tune to where it should be, and then allow adaptives to clean things up. Let's say you're going from where you live, which is a really low elevation point, to like Colorado, and you're going to be driving around in the mountains, or you're doing Tail of the Dragon, and you're going to hit some huge elevation spikes or different barometric pressures in the environment. That's where you want to allow the adaptives to do their thing and kind of clean it up. You don't want your adaptives to be leaning on that already and then go hit those kind of elevations or barometric pressure jumps and then hope that the car stays within spec. Because a lot of these settings in the tune have a variance. They can only go so far low and so far high. And if you get them past that variance, they fall to like a failed over table, which usually saves you, but it's not really where you want to be, and you're not going to be in the right power curve if you're out spirited driving or racing these cars. So yes, it can work. You can drive the car home from the shop if you throw long tube headers on and don't do a tune. The adaptives are going to catch it pretty quick, but you're certainly not going to be driving in optimal power, and you're definitely going to be risking just riding the edge on the adaptives. So that's the small part of tuning for headers. Now I'm going to jump into the fun part, which is more of the power side. And this is a spot that not a lot of tuners use, not a lot of tuners adjust, and I don't think a lot of guys even realize this is a thing. But we're going to take a look at the optimal cam angles. So we're going to take a look at the exhaust valve closing table and intake valve opening table for optimal power. And this is something in the Coyote engines, so Gen 1, 2, and 3. With VVT or variable valve timing, we have the ability to go in and tune the cams. So this has come up in a couple of videos I've done before on ghost cam tuning and then tuning for power on cams. And basically a lot of guys out there will say, a ghost cam tune's a joke, just go get real
Cams.
And the reason why I feel that's not it doesn't make sense. It's an ignorant comment if you're not familiar with the tuning side on Coyotes, because you can come in and make a lot of adjustments to these cam angles because of the cam phasers that the cars use and the variable valve timing. So you can really do some damage on the power side just by tuning the cams. And we've even seen on the dyno anywhere from 20 to 30 wheel horse in adjusting the tune in various places, especially on the cam angle side. So, but anyways, to jump into the long tube header comment around the cams, and I want to dive into it just a little bit deeper. But first, I'll just kind of share the high level concept of what the tuning side for power is on the long tube headers, because basically when you're advancing the exhaust structure of your car, so you've now got a really powerful exhaust pull from the engine. You want to retard the cams or retard the exhaust cam, and you want to advance just a little bit the intake cam. And the reason for that is you're opening up the door to a little bit more scavenging, and that's basically when you've got overlap and you've got air coming in through the intake side of the valves and coming out of the exhaust side. And so if we retard the exhaust cam angles, we're basically leaving those exhaust valves open just a little bit longer than normal. And what that's doing is it's creating additional scavenging, which is pulling air in on the intake side. So we're able to pull a little bit more fresh air in each one of those strokes if we retard the exhaust cam angles. So that's a huge power play on long tube headers that a lot of guys don't realize or do. So essentially here, we traditionally will usually retard it 2 to 3 degrees, maybe a little bit more, and then we'll dial it in on the dyno and just make sure that's optimal power. And then we'll usually advance the about the same amount of degrees, maybe a little bit less, probably a retard of about 4 degrees on the exhaust and maybe about 2 degrees on the intake side, and then we'll start dialing in on the dyno from there. But that really just allows you to get a little bit more overlap and a little bit more scavenging in the combustion cycle to essentially take advantage of those long tube headers that are pulling the exhaust out of the engine. And as they're doing that through scavenging, they're pulling more fresh air into the intake stroke. And since that intake stroke and exhaust stroke are starting to overlap a little bit in this tune structure, you're really dialing up the power. And as I mentioned, we've been able to crank up the wheel horsepower a lot by dialing in these cam angles for headers. So if you guys have any questions, throw them in the comments. We'd love to talk a little bit more about this and answer any questions you guys might have. All right, guys, have a good one.